Hey guys, welcome into the Stinkin Truth podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside my co-host Mike Evans. Thank you so much for making us a part of your week. We appreciate you guys so much. Please make sure you subscribe and do all the things you do. Share it with all your friends. So anyhow, Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. This is it. Championship weekend, but we do have some news to get to from the week. A couple of coaching hires. So let's take each one separate. Let's start with Ben Johnson. Finally leaving the warm embrace of the Lions and Dan Campbell. He's got to head out and coach the Chicago Bears. Good fit?
I think it's a great fit. He said some things in his press conference that I think were really interesting. Had him on Breakfast Ball this morning, so got to talk to him not only on air but off air for a while as well in a break. So really cool. But one of the things he said is he was going to deconstruct the playbook. And he said, a lot of coaches will come in and just flop down the playbook and go, this is what we do. He goes, I need to deconstruct my playbook and rebuild it based on Caleb Williams, because some of the skill sets that, Jared Goff has are not the skill sets of Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. And so we need to lean into that, lean into what we have here and reconstruct our playbook. So I thought that was really interesting, talking to Ben about that and the, just kind of how he looked at things. He said he did that as well when he came to Detroit with Jared Goff. Said, really, I had to lean into his strengths, what he likes, what he's really good at, lean into those things. Brought some stuff with me. He brought some stuff from L.A. as well. And that was the first time that I ever got to be an offense coordinator. So it was building that playbook with Dan Campbell. And we're going to reconstruct our playbook here in Chicago that's going to be specific to really our quarterback's skill sets, so really cool to get to talk to him about that. So it just interesting, like a lot of work to do, but he's a really smart dude, really understands the game and really understands that you got to have players and you got to put those players in positions to win.
There's no doubt the guy's an offensive genius, but we've seen guys who've been really good coordinators just struggle when it comes to being the head coach. What would be your message to Bears fans? They know what they're getting in the play caller. They know what they're getting in the offensive guy, but what are they getting in terms of head coach material?
Yeah, interesting question, because nobody really knows until you know, right? Until you get the opportunity to do it. And I remember talking to Kyle Shanahan a couple of years ago about going from, offense coordinator to head coach. He goes, listen, when things aren't going well as an offensive coordinator, I lock myself into my office for 3 days. I don't shower, and I come out like a mad genius at the end of the thing. Like, I got it figured out, right? He goes, as the head coach, you can't do that, man. You got to get up. You got to shower every morning. You got to meet with the press. You got to, you got a bunch of other things, a bunch of other fires you have to put out during the course of the week. And you got to meet with the media every day. Like when I'm OC, I meet with them once a week, all these different things, right? So really interesting. Like that's all something that you're going to have to manage as the head coach. I think that his relationship with Dan Campbell and the way Dan Campbell addresses his team and the things that are important, the toughness, the selflessness, all the things that are important to Dan Campbell, he brings with him. He understands that connectivity. He understands that relational aspect, and he understands that that's what it takes to win. So I really like that philosophical approach, Mike. And so it'll be really interesting just to watch that thing happen, to see exactly kind of how that goes down.
The purging of Dan Campbell's staff, Aaron Glenn getting the Jets job, former player. And is this, in your mind, a good fit? They're going with another defensive guy.
Yeah.
Robert Collins. Sometimes, a lot of times they go the opposite way, right? But this time they're going to go right back with another defensive guy.
Yeah, a guy that was drafted 12th overall in 1994 to the New York Jets. He's a New York Jet. He was an all-pro for the New York Jets, a really good player, really good dude, very connected to his players. You talk to anybody in Detroit, man, they love him. They love his aggressiveness, the way he plays the game, the way he coaches the game. Love all that stuff about Aaron Glenn. Like, I think the biggest, they don't have a general manager. And and some people will look at that as like, ooh, you hire the coach before you hire the general manager. Who gives a rip, right? Like nobody knew who Adam Peters was. Unless you're inside football, nobody knows who Adam Peters is. Nobody knows who, the assistant GM in Tampa was, who just got hired by the Raiders in Spytech. Tom Brady, the Raiders ordering a guy named Spytech.
Come on, you can't make that up.
Come on. Seriously?
Come on, really?
Hey, Tom. I see you. I see you, Brady. I see you. Touche.
Right.
Up yours, right? I like that about you. I like that. Tom's a competitive cuss. He gets it. So, I get all that stuff, but nobody really knows. As long as that guy that you're hiring, and I don't mind hiring the GM after you hire the coach, to say, hey, listen, man, we're going to work in unison, in connection, but my GM has to know what my philosophical approach is to football and my philosophical approach position by position. So, for instance, let's say you hire a general manager that goes after kind of, zone corners. And Aaron Glenn goes, no, I want to play 70% man. I need man corner. Like, you need to know that. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the one most important hire that's going to happen for the New York Jets hasn't happened yet, and that's who your offensive coordinator is. And especially if you bring back Aaron Rodgers. Because if you bring back Aaron Rodgers, the guy you hire better have every freaking answer. Because Aaron's going to challenge you, and Aaron's going to question, why are we running this? What are we doing? So you have to have a guy that's got authority, that's got some balls, that will push back, and that will challenge that quarterback. Because Aaron's not disrespectful. He just has a knowledge. Man, I sat down with him when I called the Jets-Jacksonville game to talk about the run game. And we had this 25-minute conversation about the run game. And Aaron was unbelievable in his depth of knowledge of the run game and how disgusted he was with the way the Jets were running. I mean, it was unreal. And so those are things that he's earned that right, man. He is that guy. He is that smart. But you better have a guy that has answers. And then a guy that's not fake. If you don't have the answers, man, I'll get back to you on that. I'm going to come up with something. But you've got to have that. And as an offensive player, Mike, I always wanted a rule. Like, I was a big rule guy. So I would tell my offensive line coach, okay, how are we going to block this, right? Do we get this look or we get this blitz? How are we going to go about this, right? Yep. And how are we going to call this? Like, what's the call? And then, all right, this is the way we do it, right? So we're not changing the way we do it 2 weeks from now. This is the way this gets called. This is the way we pick this particular blitz up or this particular stun up. And let's make sure that this is now written in our list of holy scriptures of offensive line play. Okay, done. Let's set it. Because you need that as a player, because when situations happen, you want to just be able to react. You don't want to have to think about, should I do this or should I do that? Well, 1 week we did it this way. The next week we did it this way. I don't want that, man. I want a freaking hard and fast rule that this is what happens. And that gives me the best opportunity to be right and be successful the majority of the time.
Final thought on the coaching hires. Both come from Detroit. Offense coordinator, defensive coordinator. Where does this leave Dan Campbell and the Lions?
It's an interesting question. Because not only you lose both your coordinators, and remember, Dan Campbell is an offensive coach, right? And I think he was calling plays before the 2022 season when Ben Johnson took over. So, he's done it. So that doesn't concern me as much. I don't know what happened. I talked to a station in Seattle Tuesday, so a couple days ago, and they were bringing in Hank Fraley for his second interview. And I don't know what happened in Seattle, so forgive me. But they were bringing in Hank Fraley, their O-line coach, to be the offensive coordinator in Seattle. And I think he was the leading candidate at that point. And Hank Fraley is a former offensive lineman in this league that is a freaking phenomenal O-line coach. Phenomenal. And that's one of the best offensive lines in all of football. And if they lose him and their OC in the same calendar year, dude, that's tough, man. That is tough. So, and I've also heard that Mark Brunell, who is their quarterback coach, is also possibly on the move to go with Aaron Glenn. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but So there's a lot of moving parts there in Detroit. I will say this. They are so freaking talented on the offensive side of the ball. They'll get their defensive players back. They'll get they'll get the defensive end back. His name's
Hutch.
What's that?
Hutch.
Yeah, Hutchinson. They'll get the the defensive McNeil or whatever their defensive tackle's name is. They've got a bunch of dudes that they're going to get back. So they'll get those guys back, couple corners back. Like I'm not as concerned as I would be with a lesser talented team. Brad Holmes, their general manager, has done such a great job of drafting and developing that roster that I'm not. Am I concerned a little bit? But I'm not like overly concerned.
And you knew this was coming. And this is a good problem to have. You want your coaches to be poached. You know, if you're not losing coaches, you're not doing well enough. So this is something that I'm sure Detroit had been planning for some time, the understanding that they were going to have to groom some other people. So we'll see what happens there. Let's get to the games, and let's start with the NFC. Your Washington Commanders. I know no matter what you say, you got a little rooting interest in this because of your background, but Washington and Philly, here we go.
Yeah.
Third time.
NFC.
They've split the first two. Here we go.
NFC East battle for the NFC Conference Championship. Great. I mean, just great matchup. And I don't know if you heard what Dan Quinn said yesterday. He's like, don't count us as the underdogs. We earned it. We're not underdogs. We've earned this. Like, we've earned it through our play. And as a player, man, I mean, you get excited about stuff like that. Like, we earned this, man. Don't call us an underdog. It's so interesting, Mike, because I went through and watched every throw that Jaden Daniels made in that game against Detroit. And so interesting because the narrative is, he runs a lot of RPOs and there's a lot of bubble screens and there's a lot of this, that, and the other. And so, you hear it on the broadcast, you watch some highlights, and he had the one quick bubble screen out off a blitz to Terry McLaurin, who went 60 yards or whatever. And you're like, he's just throwing it out there. It's just a little, just a little bubble. And it was planned, so no big deal. So I went back through and watched every completion, every throw. Dude, he dissected the Detroit Lions from the pocket. He was amazing. Jaden Daniels is compound W. That dude covers warts. And I'm telling you what, man, he's playing like a freaking 10-year veteran.
Yeah.
Forget about the rookie stuff. That dude is playing the position at an incredibly high level. Now, if you press me on who wins and why, who would I take?
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
You don't have to do it yet.
Okay. So here's what I would tell you. Washington's got the momentum.
Yep.
They've got momentum coming into this game without question. And I would tell you, like, Philadelphia O-line, check mark in the Philly box, right? Wide receivers, check mark in the Philly box. Tight end, Goddard versus Ertz, check mark in the Philly box. Yep. The running back, hey, I love Brian Robinson. He ain't Saquon Barkley, check mark. Defensive line, Jalen Carter gets the check mark for me. That dude's been unblockable. Linebacking core. Listen, Bobby Wagner is awesome. Frankie Louvu is great. Zach Bond is an all-pro player. I might, just on experience and the way I like Frankie Louvu, I might give that one to Washington. Secondary, no question, Darius Slay, Mitchell, the guys they have in their secondary, Dijon or whatever his name is. I would give that to Philly as well. So, like, if you're going confidence poll, position by position, I think Philly wins all but really one position, maybe two. Linebacker, maybe. And then ultimately they win quarterback. But here's the deal. When your quarterback is a winner in that, like, versus Jalen Hurts, I will take Jaden Daniels 100% of the time because that dude is making unbelievable plays. And That's enough. Like you get the right game plan, you put him in the right position. He makes enough of those wow plays, those spectacular plays, and that's enough to get over the top, Mike.
So Washington, you and I like to play this game. Washington wins this game if they do what?
All right. So one, I think they need to put Jalen Hurts in a pocket and make him throw it 35 times. Meaning, man, you got to stop the run game. You got to make Jalen Hurts beat you from the pocket. Remember, he's banged up. He's got the knee issue. Make him beat you throwing the football. And bottom line, could he do it? Absolutely. Has he done it in the past? Without question. Do they have the receivers to take advantage of it? You're damn right they do. A.J. Brown is a beast. So is Smith. So could he do it? Yes. My most likely way of winning this game is playing a bunch of 8-man fronts, which means when you play an 8-man front, Mike, so you either knock your backers over strong, we call that bossing the backers over strong, or you bow your backers over weak, right? And what does that mean? It means if you boss them, weak safety's coming down. If you bow them, strong safety's coming down. You create an 8-man front, okay? So create an 8-man front, right? Stop the run game at all costs. And when you do that, what you end up saying is, we're going to play you with outside access free, meaning we're going to play man-to-man on the outside. Even if we're playing cover 3, a zone out there, you still have any vertical concept as match. So it's a 3 match. So it means you're in man-to-man in any of those concepts. So, like, that's kind of what, or you can play with your safeties heels down, in a shell front and just say, hey, man, we're going to react to the run. We're going to go get, Saquon, whatever. But the bottom line, you got to make Jalen Hurts beat you from the pocket. I think that's the number one thing you're going to have to do. Scary Terry McLaurin has had his way with the Philadelphia Eagles, averaging almost 75 yards per game, almost 6 catches per game, like 8 or 9 targets per game. He has been the one guy that they have not been able to cover very well. And as a matter of fact, Darius Slay has struggled. He's an outstanding corner. He's been a Pro Bowl corner in this league for years and years and years. Terry McLaurin's eaten his lunch on many different occasions. So it was one of those situations back in their Super Bowl run where they would try not to match up Darius Slay on Scary Terry. And trust me, Washington will try to get that done because it's just been one of those individual, styles make fights type of matchups. So that's something they've got to do. And then ultimately, it's number 5. Dude, push comes to shove on 3rd down and 4th down. Go make a freaking play.
Yeah.
Go save our bacon. And that's really what it's going to take for them to win this game.
Flip side, Philly wins this game if they do what?
If they control both lines of scrimmage like they have through the majority of the season.
Yep.
They control both lines of scrimmage, mean they're running the ball. Because if you get enough attempts in the run game, think about last week, Philly averaged 3 yards a carry right up until the point that Saquon Barkley broke 2 60-plus yard runs, right? But for the most part, they shut him down. But if you allow them to get those carries, there's going to come – and you're playing 8-man boxes. The thing about an 8-man box is you got one single high safety. So what happens if you break that first level of defense? Saquon is – there ain't nobody catching Saquon. That dude is a speed merchant, man. So you get past that initial line of defense and you're gone. So it's easy to sit there and say, hey, listen, we're going to shut down the run. Attempts, if Philly gets enough attempts, if they can hold Saquon to 15, 16 attempts, they got a chance. Saquon goes 24 attempts. Sorry, he's going to bust one of them.
Yep.
And then you're in trouble.
Yep.
And then ultimately, can the defensive line pressure and collapse the pocket like they have done? I mean, they did it against the Rams. They did it a bunch. So they've been, like I said, Jalen Carter's been unblockable. They got a great rotation up there, really strong defensive front.
So we'll get to the pick for that game coming up in a bit, but let's talk about the AFC game and Kansas City, Buffalo. It almost felt like this may have been destined from the start. You know, all apologies to the Ravens, but you almost kind of get the sense that we were heading towards this kind of a showdown. Let me go with Buffalo. Buffalo wins this game if they can do what at Arrowhead?
I think, number one, they've got to be great in the red zone. They're the second best red zone team in football. They run the ball effectively in the red zone, and part of their run game is the quarterback run. So whether it's quarterback power, quarterback counter, it is Josh Allen running the football. If they can be efficient in the red zone, because you look at the differences. Buffalo scores at almost a 77% clip. I think it was 77 or 76% clip, something like that, 71. They were number 2 in the league in red zone efficiency, okay? Over 70% scoring in the red zone. I can't remember the exact number. The Kansas City Chiefs are in the 20s, like 22. They're scoring at about a 53% clip in the red zone. So if you can force them to kick field goals and you can score touchdowns in the red zone, then I think they win the game. But ultimately it comes down to this, Mike. Let's call it 3 minutes left in the game. Okay? Buffalo, you better have a 2-score lead when you get to the 3-minute mark in the fourth quarter, or you better have the ball last. And I mean the last. Or you can take a knee.
Clock. Yeah,
victory formation, because you have proven if you give Kansas City's offense the ball with 13 or more seconds on the clock, you're going to lose. There is no quarterback in the National Football League that is more feared with a last drive than Patrick Mahomes, without question. The dude is just an absolute witch when it comes to that.
2 words: mortar kick.
Right?
Mortar kick. Okay.
Learn it, love it, live it.
Do not kick the ball in the air for them to catch. Put it on the ground.
Right, to fair catch it, like make them return the ball, squib it, do whatever you got to do. But do not let them have the ball without any time coming off the clock.
Flip side, we've seen this for so many years now. Kansas City, the formula seems to be pretty tried and true. What is it?
You know, you go back to last week. Last week, they were able to sack C.J. Stroud 8 times. And in critical moments, critical situations, Steve Spagnuolo, I think 5 straight times dialed up blitz. You just dial it up. They've got great corners, man. They can really play. They're really well coached, and they're really good. Really good. And so that's kind of who they are. Critical moments, they seem to be able to find a way to make the big critical play. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for them. Do I think they give it a favorable whistle because of Mahomes? Yep, I do. I do. I understand that going in. I'm not going to cry about it. But that's kind of who they are. So you've got to be on your P's and Q's. Defensively, to me, this really is the big key. Kansas City offensively, like, go back to last week.
Yeah.
They put up 227 yards of offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, 227. They had one wide receiver that caught a ball last week. You know, Worthy's the only guy that caught a ball for them at the wide receiver position.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Kelce caught the rest of them in the running backs. So I will say this. You ought not let Travis Kelce run free in the middle of the football field.
Right.
That would be a coaching point, Mike. We call that a coaching point. But listen, man, I like, you know, I fight with people on X. My wife is out of town. I'm just sitting in an apartment by myself in New York. Right. So why wouldn't I fight with people on X?
Why not?
It works for me.
Good hobby.
Man, some guy accused me of being a hater and you know, hating the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's like, duh, like, no shit. Yeah, you're right. Like, tell me something I don't know. Of course I hate them.
Right.
But I have a lot of respect for them. Although you look at the last 11 playoff games, Mike, dude,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if all this national noise will eliminate some of those quick flags for the Kansas City Chiefs, because there is a ton of national noise. Listen to this. I did a little deep dive because I was arguing with the Kansas City Chiefs fans. In their last 11, so it's not a small sample size, goes back to 2021, their last 11 playoff games, the Chiefs have had 36 penalties thrown against them for 305 yards. Their opponents have had 66 penalties thrown against them for over 500. I think it's over five. It was like 545 or 541 or something like that. All right. So almost double the amount of penalties and almost double the yards against the opponents of the Chiefs. So that kind of makes you go, interesting, right? And then my guy Warren Sharp on X. Okay, in the last 4 postseasons, so that's the last 11 games, roughing the passer calls on opponents, 7. Roughing the passer calls on the Chiefs, 1. Unnecessary roughness fouls on the opponents, 4. On the Chiefs, 1. DPI or defensive holding on the opponent, 11. On the Chiefs, 2. Now, I keep hearing Chief fans go, well, it's because we're a better football team and we're better coached.
Or disciplined.
Listen, yeah, disciplined. You're in the playoffs. Everybody in the playoffs is pretty freaking good. I understand the home team's going to get the advantage. And if you look at the home teams over the last decade or so, they have a slight advantage. It's like 398 penalties called to 365 penalties called. So there's a standard deviation there that's acceptable. It's not 2-1. It's not 300 penalties called against versus 600 penalties called for. Like, it's not that big a difference. So I tend to wonder if the league is going to look at all the noise out there and go, hey, boys, no favorable whistles. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think it's a conspiracy, Mike. I don't think people are like, I know the NFL is not going, hey, we need the Chiefs to win because Taylor Swift is in the center. That's stupid.
Right.
Like, that's dumb. But, we say it all the time. Did Kobe Bryant get a favorable whistle?
Exactly.
Does LeBron get a favorable whistle? Does, pick your favorite player?
Yeah.
And does Mahomes get a favorable whistle? And my answer would be, you're damn right he does.
There's a difference between the superstar friendly whistle treatment and just rigging the game.
Right.
I mean, so
at the end of his career, Tom Brady got it. Like, if Tom Brady looked up and said, and went like this, like, where's my flag? They were like, oh, let me get it for you, Tom, and threw it out.
Right.
So yeah, you know what? The same Chiefs fans that are saying there's nothing to see here were the same guys that were bitching when Brady was getting the calls over Mahomes in their AFC Championship game where the Chiefs lost.
You've done a great job of breaking this all down. Let's get to our picks. You get to go first since you're leading.
Well, I was awful so I was 0-2-2 last week. Yep. You were 1-1-2 last week, so neither of us were worth a crap. I was 3-0 going into it, so I'm 3-2-2 in the playoffs, and you were 0-3 going into it, so you are 1-4-2 into the playoffs. Nothing to write home about. Let's just keep this between us.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I am going to take. I know the Chiefs are favorites. Well, I forgot to look up the lines here. Hold on for 1 second.
1.5. Chiefs are favored. 1.5.
I'm taking the Bills. I'm giving the point. I'm getting the points, and I'm taking the Bills.
I can't at this point. I can't bet against them. I just can't. And they're just until you slay the dragon. I'm going to go with the dragon. So I'll take the Chiefs.
All right. You've got the Chiefs. I've got the Bills. And then what about Eagles Commanders? You want to go first on that one? Go ahead.
Yeah. I like Washington. I just think that I think Philly wins, but boy, it's going to be close. I just think Washington, they're a good team. They got a quarterback who has no fear. And I think they're going to go on the road and play another really good game. So I think I'll take Washington plus the points.
I like it. I'm just going to go against you for the sake of going against you.
Yeah.
You know how I always pick. I always think about lines of scrimmage. Who's got the best line of scrimmage? Who's got the advantage there? I think the Bills have the advantage line of scrimmage-wise on the offensive side of the ball. I'd probably give it to the Chiefs on the defensive side of the ball, although it would be close. Ed Oliver's been balling out, but they have Chris Jones. Karlaftis is really good. Yeah. So I'll give it to them. But in Philly, both lines of scrimmage for me go to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they have right now in the playoffs the best offensive line in the playoffs, bar none, goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Those guys are absolute beastly. They do a lot of things very well. And then defensive line-wise, I'll also give that to Philly. Jalen Carter's been unblockable. So lines of scrimmage, even though Washington has the better quarterback and the more dynamic playmaker, I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles on this one. And I'll give you the 6 points, Mike.
All right. Fair enough. Should be a great championship Sunday.
Should be. Hey, listen, for everybody involved with the Stinkin Truth podcast, for Mike, I am Mark. Thank you guys so much for listening and making us a part of your day. We appreciate you guys. Please subscribe, share it with your friends and family. We appreciate you all. For everybody, we'll be back with you next week to break it all down. Championship weekend's going to be great. Enjoy.